The night she knocked on my door, the storm wasn't the only thing falling apart. Rain hammered against the windows like it was trying to break in. Wind howled through the empty streets. And somewhere deep inside me, something felt just as restless, just as broken. I remember standing in my dimly lit apartment in Chicago, staring at the clock past midnight, wondering why I couldn't sleep again. That's when the knock came, soft at first, almost hesitant, then louder, desperate, like whoever stood outside had nowhere else to go. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one small decision can change everything, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because sometimes they're more real than we realize. I opened the door expecting trouble, or maybe a neighbor in distress. Instead, I saw a girl standing there, soaked from head to toe, her hair clinging to her face, her eyes wide but steady, like she had already decided something important long before she knocked. Her name, I would later learn, was Olivia. But in that moment she was just a stranger with trembling hands and a question that would quietly rewrite my entire life. She said she didn't have anywhere else to go. Her voice was soft, almost swallowed by the storm, but the weight behind it was undeniable. She didn't beg. She didn't explain. She simply asked if she could stay, and I hesitated, because life had taught me to hesitate. I was 32, living alone after a divorce that had stripped me of more than just a relationship. My ex-wife Hannah had left a year earlier, taking with her the warmth of what I once thought was a permanent home. Since then, I had built walls, quiet, invisible ones that kept people at a safe distance. I told myself I was protecting my peace, but the truth was, I was afraid of letting anyone in again. So when Olivia stood there, shivering in the cold, asking for something I hadn't given anyone in a long time, trust, I felt that fear rise like a reflex. But then she looked up at me again, and there was something in her eyes I couldn't ignore. Not weakness, not manipulation, just exhaustion, and a quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't turn her away. And that's when I stepped aside. That simple movement, the smallest decision I thought I'd forget by morning, ended up becoming the most important moment of my life. Inside, she didn't say much. I gave her a towel, some dry clothes, and a place on the couch. She moved carefully, like she didn't want to take up too much space, like she was used to being unwanted. I noticed how she avoided eye contact, how she kept her hands close to herself, how every small action carried the weight of someone who had learned not to expect kindness. For a while, the only sound in the room was the storm outside. I didn't ask questions that night. I didn't need to. Some stories don't come out all at once. They unfold slowly, like scars revealing themselves over time. The next morning I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a second I forgot she was there. Then I walked into the kitchen and saw her standing by the window, holding a mug, watching the rain fade into a quiet gray sky. She looked different in the daylight, still fragile but calmer, like the storm had passed through her as much as it had passed through the city. That was the first time we really spoke. She told me she had left home 2 weeks ago. Not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Her father, a man named Victor, had turned into someone she no longer recognized after losing his job. What started as anger had slowly turned into something darker, something she didn't want to name out loud. She didn't go into details. She didn't have to. I could see enough in the way her hands shook slightly when she spoke, in the way her eyes avoided certain memories. She had been surviving, not living, and somewhere along the way she ran out of places to go. And somehow, she ended up at my door. At first I told myself it was temporary, just a few days until she figured things out. I set boundaries, made it clear that this wasn't permanent, that I wasn't in a place to take care of someone else. She nodded, understanding more than I expected. But days turned into a week. And then another. Something strange started to happen in that time. The apartment, which had felt empty and lifeless for so long, began to change. Not dramatically, not in obvious ways, but slowly, quietly, like warmth returning to a room that had been cold for too long. She would leave notes on the fridge thanking me for small things. She cleaned without being asked, cooked simple meals, and sometimes, when she thought I wasn't paying attention, she would hum softly while doing dishes. It wasn't just about what she did, it was about how she existed, carefully, gratefully, like every moment mattered, and for the first time in a long time I started to feel something shift inside me. But not everything was easy. There were nights when she would wake up from nightmares, her breathing uneven, her eyes filled with panic. There were moments when she would suddenly go quiet, retreating into herself without explanation. And there were days when I questioned whether I had made a mistake, whether I was getting involved in something I didn't fully understand. I was still broken too, still carrying my own fears, my own doubts, my own inability to trust that anything good could last. But every time I thought about asking her to leave, I remembered that night, the storm, the way she stood at my door with nothing but hope left, and I couldn't do it. So instead, I stayed. I listened when she spoke. I gave her space when she needed it. And slowly we began to build something neither of us expected. Not a relationship defined by labels, but a connection built on shared healing. Weeks later, everything changed again. It was a quiet Sunday morning when there was another knock on the door. This time, it wasn't gentle. It was firm, heavy, and the moment Olivia heard it, I saw the color drain from her face. She didn't need to say anything. I already knew. When I opened the door, I saw a man standing there, tired, worn, and carrying a kind of regret that couldn't be hidden. He introduced himself as Victor, her father. He didn't push his way in. He didn't raise his voice. He just stood there asking if she was safe, if she was okay. His eyes weren't angry, they were broken. And in that moment I realized something important. People don't just become monsters. Sometimes they fall apart. Olivia didn't come to the door right away. When she did, she stood at a distance, her body tense, her eyes filled with everything she hadn't said before. There was silence between them, heavy, painful silence filled with everything they had been through. Victor apologized, not in a dramatic way, not with grand gestures, just simple, honest words that came from a place of deep regret. He admitted his mistakes. He didn't excuse them. He didn't ask for immediate forgiveness. He just asked for a chance. And for a long moment, Olivia said nothing. Then she looked at me, and I realized she wasn't asking what to do. She was asking if she was strong enough. I didn't answer with words. I just nodded. Because this wasn't my choice to make. It was hers. She took a step forward, then another, and slowly she began to speak, not as someone afraid, but as someone who had found her voice. She didn't forgive him right away. She didn't forget what happened. But she allowed something new to exist in that space, a possibility, healing. That day, she didn't leave with him, but something changed, and over the next few weeks, she began to rebuild that relationship carefully on her own terms. She stayed with me during that time, but not because she had nowhere else to go. She stayed because she chose to. Eventually, the day came when she stood in front of me again, not as the girl who had knocked on my door in the storm, but as someone stronger, someone who had found her footing again. She told me she was going back home, not to the same place it used to be, but to a new version of it, one where boundaries existed, where respect had to be rebuilt, and I knew it was the right decision. But that didn't make it easy. Before she left, she hugged me, tightly, like she was holding on to something she didn't want to lose. And maybe I was too, because in helping her find her way, I had found something I didn't even realize I was missing, myself. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something from the heart. If this story touched you in any way, if it reminded you of someone or gave you hope, please like the video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more stories like this. Most importantly, leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever made a small choice that changed your life forever? Because sometimes, it's not the big moments, it's the quiet ones. The ones that happen in the middle of a storm. The ones where you choose kindness, even when fear tells you not to. That night, when Olivia asked if she could stay, I thought I was just helping someone get through a difficult moment. I didn't know I was opening the door to something that would change me forever. And even now, every time it rains, I find myself listening, not for the storm, but for the knock that reminded me that sometimes the right choice doesn't come with certainty. It comes with courage. And it only takes one moment,